near mint condition, the home of collected edition.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. It is finally here, all you mentees. The advance look at Spider-Man by Michelinie and Bagley Omnibus Volume 1 from Marvel Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. Before getting started, a big thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advance copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on July 16th or 17th, depending on where you get your books. And what we're looking at here is the standard edition cover. This is the one that's supplied by Mark Bagley and inked by John Romita Sr. And on the left-hand side is your direct market cover, and that is the one supplied by Mark Bagley. That one can only be found at places like cheapgraphicnovels.com, waltzcomicshop.com, bdcosmos.com, instocktrades.com, dyingbreedcollectors.com, organicpricebooks.com, and your local comic book store, of course. But everything else underneath the dust jacket is the same. So let's shift the focus back to this. You have the Marvel logo, Spider-Man right there, with Spidey there, and these group of villains. I love this cover. And you have by David Michelinie and Mark Bagley, finally. Marvel Omnibus Spider-Man by David Michelinie and Mark Bagley, Volume 1. There's that image, of course, by Mark Bagley. And then the covers of the issues that are collected in here. Rated T, what's collected in here, A Truly Amazing Era of Spider-Man, and ISBN, and retail price being $125. Now, before I take the dust jacket off, I did want to go ahead and tell you where it belongs in the reading order of Spider-Man in omnibus format. So it goes right after, and I mean immediately after, the Erik Larsen omnibus. However, some of the stuff has been collected in the Spider-Man vs. Venom omnibus, and that can now be like a Venom omnibus, or I guess Venomnibus Volume 0, because you are going to be double dipping some in there. Not everything, of course, just some of these issues that are collected in here. And I'll explain as I do the overview what exactly will be double dipping. But let's shift the focus again back to this and take the dust jacket off. Awesome image right there. Mark Bagley joins the pantheon of Spidey's greats, and then the creators over here, David Michelinie, Al Milgrom, Mark Bagley. That dust jacket is thick. Like, I don't know. For some reason, it's standing out. It's because because I was just holding this one. It's thicker than the Spider-Man vs. Venom dust jacket over here. But I'll do a little bit of an internal comparison here to the artwork once we open this up. But I did want to go ahead and show you what this looks like. I love this right here, this design and this pattern, this webbing, if you will, that is all over the omnibus. Spider-Man by David Michelinie and Mark Bagley, and Marvel Omnibus, Spider-Man by David Michelinie and Mark Bagley in Volume 1. And that picture, I dig that. I mean, I think I'd rather have this, just like the way it stands out. Then it kind of looks like creases, though. I don't know. I think it looks cool, though. Definitely stands out on the shelf. All right, let's crack this open, because we are filling in those gaps between this and the Clone Saga. So we're going to talk about the stories collected in here, show off the artwork, of course, and then we'll talk about the build. And then, as promised, do a quick comparison to the Spider-Man vs. Venom omnibus. All right, let's go ahead and crack this omnibus open. We have some black end sheets right there. The Spider-Man by David Michelinie and Mark Bagley title page, and then your credits here, Spider-Man by David Michelinie and Mark Bagley. However, they're not alone. You also have Al Milgrom, Eric Fane, and Fabian Nicieza, Tom Brevoort writing some of the stories, and other people here. Mark Bagley, Guang Yap, and Alan Cooperberg, Scott McDaniel, Aaron Lopresti, Steve Ditko, Scott Collins, John Romita Sr. coming in and penciling some of the stuff, and others as well, and inkers Randy Emberlin and Alan Cooperberg, Bud LaRosa, Keith Williams, Steve Ditko, Keith Aiken, Bruce Jones coming in as inkers, along with others. Mary Severin doing some pencils. My goodness, the colorist Bob Sharon and Kevin Tinsley, just to name a few of the colorists, and the lettering by Rick Parker and Joe Rosen and others. And then you have your table of contents where you're going to find each of these particular stories, what page. Not only that, but also what the title of these particular issues was. Wild at Heart and When Midnight Strikes. And what issue it is and when it originally came out. Sometimes it was bi-weekly. And we kick it off with Amazing Spider-Man Annual Number 25, The Vibranium Vendetta. This is not Mark Bagley. As a matter of fact, Eric Larson supplies the covers for the 3 annuals that this goes across. But this is Guang Yap doing the art, but David Michelinie. That is a David Michelinie and Mark Bagley omnibus. So collected in here is Amazing Spider-Man 351 to 375, Amazing Spider-Man Annual 25 and 26, and then material from Spectacular Spider-Man Annuals 11 and 12, Web of Spider-Man 7 and 8, and New Warriors Annual Number 2. The book has 1,040 pages and retails for $125. So the first story arc in here, it is a 3-part story through Amazing Spider-Man, and then you have some backup stories here, mainly featuring the characters of Venom and then Silver Sable and the Wild Pack. This is a story about Chance by David Michelinie, but drawn by Steve Ditko, which is just awesome, because I don't think I realized as a kid how cool it was to have the co-creator of Spider-Man come back and draw a Spider-Man comic, even though it doesn't feature Spider-Man. I kind of just, probably at the time, just kind of threw it off as like, whatever, that's cool. Mary Severin doing this particular issue right here. So what this Vibranium story is, it does feature the characters of Spider-Man teaming up with Iron Man and, of course, Black Panther, because we're talking about Vibranium. And what's happening is that this corporation has made this synthetic Vibranium and available to everybody. And that is corporation, of course, is Roxxon. Roxxon Corporation has done that, and that's when the villains come in, like Kingpin and Ghost. And there's also this new villain called Centurion. Now, Kingpin and Ultron do make a deal, so I'll let you find out what ends up happening with that particular story, and then we kick off this omnibus with the proper Mark Bagley and David Michelinie piece right here, and that is issue 351, the Tri-Sentinel Strikes Back. Now, we've seen Spider-Man fight off against the Tri-Sentinel, and now he doesn't have cosmic powers, though. So how exactly is he going to deal with this creature? No worries. He teams up with the human rocket himself, the man called Nova. That's right. Nova during this time had gotten his powers back because of the events of what happened in New Warriors. And this isn't the first time that Spider-Man had teamed up with Nova. They had teamed up in the past before. As a matter of fact, Nova blamed blamed Spider-Man for killing his uncle, but that was a whole thing in the Nova Omnibus. Then we get Round Robin. Now, Round Robin has been collected before in the Moon Knight Omnibus. That's right, the 90s Moon Knight Omnibus Volume 1. Mark Spector Moon Knight. It has been collected, all 6 issues in there. And it is pretty much these plot points from Moon Knight during the Chuck Dixon era that Al Milgrom, who was editor at the time, thought, hey, we need to figure this out. No, it was Danny Fingeroth approaching Al Milgrom. We need to, actually wrap up these loose ends. Let's put it in a Spider-Man book. So Al Milgrom writes the story, and you have Mark Bagley drawing this art. And Midnight was the kind of the sidekick to Moon Knight for a while. However, this time around, he comes back as a villain. He's teaming up with the Secret Empire, and he's not alone. He's bringing the Secret Empire with him. So, Moon Knight has to team up with Spider-Man, Nova, Night Thrasher, and Punisher. Now, that's just some of the people he teams up with. Of course, there's also Darkhawk through here, and a couple of other key players through the 90s. I've always loved this issue right here. Brings memories back of going to the grocery store and asking my mom to get me some comics that weren't X-Men, that were outside of X-Men. And it got me into Darkhawk. That particular comic book did. Now, this piece right here, I think it was a fold out. If it, I think it did. It folded out to like 4 pieces. So it's kind of like condensing it a little bit here, if I'm not mistaken. Like it was a 4-piece fold out. And there's what the spread pages look like. Now that stuff has been collected before in omnibus format, oversized format, but let's get back to issue 359 with the return of Cardiac, a character that appeared in the previous omnibus, and I showed where I'm putting these omnis in reading order, by Eric Larson. And then we get cameos of Cletus Cassidy with the symbiote. That's right, and all leading to the next issues, which is, of course, the coming of Carnage. And I always loved the design of Cardiac, too. He was a character that I thought Eric Larson did an amazing job designing. However, he didn't stick around that long, especially when you have the spawn of Venom, Carnage. Now, this story, this 3-part story, has been collected before in the omnibus we're about to look at here to do a comparison, and that is the Spider-Man vs. Venom omnibus. But for the first time, it is put here in chronological order without missing a beat. It is the return of Venom and the spawn of Venom. But this time around, Venom is teaming up with Spider-Man to take down Carnage, who's a serial killer with a symbiote. Forget it. Now, this is also before the time there were many symbiotes. And I realize now that's crazy when, you know, you've had Absolute Carnage, you've had the King of the Symbiotes, the King of Blacks, like, come down. So it feels weird saying that there was a time like that, but there wasn't. There wasn't that many symbiotes. There's just 2 of them at the time. And man, do I love this story arc. It's so raw. It's so dark. And I loved it. Then we get the Hero Killers. That's right. It's the crossover with, of course, the New Warriors. And this not only features artwork by Scott McDaniel. Not all of it, but a lot of it is drawn by Scott McDaniel. But it does also feature some other supporting cast. Like you've got Solo through here. And you've got the backup stories with Venom through here. But it is mainly the team up between Spider-Man and the New Warriors, teaming up against the Hero Killers. And who exactly is behind the Hero Killers? Well, there's a couple of twists and turns. It's more of a New Warriors story, honestly. But a lot of characters from Spider-Man and Marvel's past Rogue Gallery show up through here, like Backlash and Boomerang and Speed Demon. You always... Also, what was it? Discus is through here. Beetle, the Constrictor, and Hydro Man. The Rhino and Bombshell and Stiletto shows up through here. Yeah, Stiletto is through these pages. And there is somebody that's pulling the strings through all of this. And like I said, it does feel more like a comic book about the New Warriors. Then we come back to your regularly scheduled Spider-Man comic with the return of the Shocker. Now, something happened at the end of issue 363 that was a big, like, what's going on exactly through these pages? These 2 older people show up here, and they will become a big, important part in Spider-Man's life. So much so that it leads into the big anniversary issue right here, which is the fight against the Lizard. And I think this anniversary issue actually has a couple of amazing moments here. Yes, the saga of Spidey's parents right here, talking about who they are. And then you have this How I Created Spider-Man story by David Michelinie and Aaron Lopresti. And then this was a big celebration because it went all the way through like Web of Spider-Man and also the Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man. I absolutely loved this. This is one of my favorite stories that is collected in here. This is a story by Stan Lee and Tom DeFalco. And actually, Stan Lee does the script in here. Let me see. Yes, Stan Lee does the script. The plot's Tom DeFalco. But John Romita Sr. draws this. And it's called I Remember Gwen. And it's told through the perspective of Mary Jane. And it is just the memories of Gwen Stacy and what ended up happening to her. And how grateful she is for Peter Parker Spider-Man. It's a beautiful story. I love it. It's quick. It's quick, easy read. This is the backup story with the Prowler. So this anniversary issue had a lot going on. The first 30 years. Oh my gosh. It's been 60 now. How did that even happen? That is still gorgeous. This image right here, Amazing Spider-Man 365, which is also your direct market cover. And then this piece right here with the Red Skull. And what does it have to do with Peter Parker and his parents? That is a fill-in issue. Then we have this issue right here with the evil versions of Captain America, Hawkeye, and Spider-Man. But that's okay. Spider-Man's teaming up with Solo himself, who I always liked. I always appreciated. Red Skull still pulling some strings around here. And then we have the big 6-part story arc in here, and that is the Spider Slayers, the invasion of the Spider Slayers. And right off the bat, you find out who is behind the Spider Slayers and who has been sending them out. Now, of course, the Spider Slayers can't act alone, right? It has to be Electro dropped in there, the Scorpion drops in here for some fun, and a couple of other surprises. And there are some backstories through here as well. You have Black Cat teaming. Golly, that outfit. Felicia, what are you doing? And it is the return of a couple of other villains that look a little bit different, that look more like their 90s versions of them. The 90s was a very interesting time. Now, we have the return of Venom. After the big fight with Carnage, Venom he was going to kill Spider-Man, but then again, he always does. But this is the big fight that takes place. Now, some of this was collected in the Spider-Man versus Venom, but not the entirety of issue 375. That issue is just partially collected in the pages of Spider-Man vs. Venom. Yes, so this issue right here is only partially collected. Mainly just the parts with Venom is collected in that particular omnibus. But all the backup stories that play a big part in this in chronological order, these are not collected in there. Now, the extras in the back, I love the fact that they collected this. This is the Marvel Comics Tryout Competition book, and that's where Mark Bagley got his start. He broke into comics by winning the official Marvel Comics Tryout Competition. That's freaking awesome. And then this article came from 1987's Marvel Age number 50. Speaking of Marvel Age, that's where this standard edition cover comes from. And again, it is drawn by Mark Bagley, inked by John Romita. Love that. And it's John Romita Sr. And then you have interviews and house ads and articles on what's coming next. Now, one of the biggest questions I'm going to get, and it happens every time. Oh, I love the making of a hologram. That's so freaking cool. Is, will this, obviously it double dips with what I mentioned, the Moon Knight Omnibus Volume 1, and also Mark Spector, that is, and also the Spider-Man vs. Venom Omnibus. But eventually we're going to get this stuff collected in an omnibus of Amazing Spider-Man Volume, I guess it would be Volume, oh my gosh, no, it would be Volume 14, 15? Yeah, absolutely. And it will be more complete because this isn't complete. This doesn't collect everything, like even the Epic collections. Because, for example, this Epic collection collects the graphic novel Spider-Man Fear Itself. But because that's by Jerry Conway and not by David Michelinie, it's drawn by Ross Andru, it's not collected in here. And this one here collects the graphic novel Soul of the Hunter. And that Soul of the Hunter is not by David Michelinie or Spider-Man. So, of course, yes, when we get to volume, I would say 15, 16 of Amazing Spider-Man, this stuff will be collected in there. It may not even take that long. But here's the thing. We don't even have Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 6 out yet. How many years is it going to be before we get here? And that's something I always like to remind people. Yes, of course, this will be, I don't want to say obsolete, because if you still like David Michelinie and Mark Bagley's collection, of course you can keep it. But it will double dip heavily with one of those numbered omnis. But how long will that take? And that's the thing. I've always loved this. Oh my gosh, Jan Dursema killed it. This was part of the swimsuit. Yeah, swimsuit special. Holiday special. So you are going to find pinups here. And also covers to old trade paperbacks. Speaking of old trade paperbacks, man, that brings back memories right there. Column Chaos, Ravage, Carnage. That's from the trade paperback introduction by David Michelinie. Invasion of the Spider Slayers, which was also collected in a trade paperback. And has an article on the original Spider Slayers. And then you have original art here. Some of the stuff has been collected before in an epic format, but not everything. And speaking of epic format, here are the recolors for the epic format of Round Robin and the Hero Killers over here. And Hidden Gem variant, Venom 150 Remastered variant, and Absolute Carnage Hidden Gem variant. And your end sheets. Now let's quickly take a look at the binding, and then we'll compare it to some of the art in the Spider-Man vs. Venom Omnibus. 1,040 pages. We've seen bigger eyes, and we've seen smaller eyes. This is printed at the iMac printer. And it is sewn binding. And let's look at the way it lays over with some spread pages here. So because of the way that you saw the eye right there, you do get a little bit of gutter loss. Not too much, but it is there. And as far as the paper stock, it is glossy paper. It's thicker than the iMac has printed before. But you do get a little bit of bleed through happening from the opposite side. So I really do want to make people aware that there's just a little bit, usually through whites or some light colors. Now let's do a comparison to the Spider-Man vs. Venom. Alright, so we have the Spider-Man vs. Venom Omnibus over here, and the Spider-Man by David Michelinie and Mark Bagley Omnibus over here. I don't want to look through the whole thing or title pages. I mainly want to get to the full issues that they both share with each other. So over here is the one that's printed at the Donnelly printer, and this one over here is printed at the iMac printer. And of course they're starting from two different places because this one is printed in the proper order with everything, and this one's printed with just Carnage pages throughout here. One thing you're going to notice is the way that the covers are collected. That cover still has a frame around it, but it doesn't have like the symbiote goo that's coming from the top on this particular cover, like they did with the, like the cover to the omnibus right there. This is also the first printing. There was a second printing of this book, but that's my original printing. Now let's look and compare some of these pages here, where actually the colors look identical, but I was mainly focusing on the bleed through happening. So there's a little more bleed through happening over here, because the paper stock is just a little bit thinner than the paper stock in the Donnelly printer. So just a little bit thinner. So you are going to get a little bit more bleed through over there. And that's just the way the book lays over compared to the one from the Donnelly printer. But they're two different Omnis, so I almost find it weird to be doing a comparison. But it's mainly to see the differences in the colors, or to see the way the book lays over. But speaking of colors, the colors in the Michelinie and Bagley Omnibus are just a tad bit darker than the colors here in this Spider-Man vs. Venom Omnibus. Let me see if I can find. I was trying to find a spread page, but instead I found the issue 375, which is not collected in full over here, but it is collected in full over here, including True Friends, The Monster Within, Echoes, and Spider's Web. This just has the Bride of Venom in here, which leads into Lethal Protector, which is why it's collected in here and not completely full. However, Lethal Protector is not collected in this omnibus. That's right, because this jumps right into the Maximum Carnage. And that is the big question. Maximum Carnage will play a big part in the second omnibus of Spider-Man by Michelinie and Bagley. So how will it be collected? Will it be collected in full? Or will it be collected which is the Amazing Spider-Man issues that were done by Bagley and Michelinie. And yeah, we don't have an answer to that yet because there is no volume 2 solicited. But it is going to be really interesting to see how they decide to collect it in the second omnibus of this, if I guess there is one to come. But that's it. That was the comparison I wanted to make. So that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors. BD Cosmos, the Canadian leader in graphic novels. They have a physical storefront in Montreal, Quebec, and their website, bdcosmos.com, offers 25% off your order of over $99 or more, and free shipping everywhere in Canada for every order of $200 or more.
Their shipping care is exceptional. Your books will stay cozy through the rough Canadian weather and arrive to you in near mint condition.
After checkout, let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way, and you'll be added to the monthly $25 gift card raffle. Entries are valid for new and returning customers.
Don't be afraid to call or email them. Ask them questions. Their staff is always happy to help guide you towards the right purchase. Visit their website, bdcosmos.com, for more. BD Cosmos, with rewards and raffles taking care of customers in Canada. Eh?
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you are so excited about finally picking this up and filling in those missing gaps. If you didn't even know where this fit into the reading order of Spider-Man, and if you're hoping that there will be a volume 2. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Everybody, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.